Just because you live in a favela doesn't mean you can't achieve something in life, or have a dream, or a future. My dream was to become a footballer and one day play for Brazil. And thanks to this game, we're here talking now, so football was extremely important to me.
Cafu's biggest virtue is the unrelenting desire to get the most out of his talent.
Cafu, more than any other player, had this desire and determination.
Cafu embodies a player who has talent and combines it with incredible willpower and physical strength, like very few others.
He had everything. He could defend, he could attack, he could do anything. He was a complete player.
Naturally a magnificent athlete who by sheer hard work and intelligence became a great player.
I grew up on the outskirts of São Paulo, with all the difficulties that brings. We were a family of 8 people, living in one room. But I think the education I gained from the favela, and from my parents, ended up making me the player that I became.
One of the important things that football provides here is an escape from not only poverty, but also from just limited opportunities. It's a lot of pressure to put on a young life. But in many cases, that's the one chance that you've got.
I knew sooner or later my chance would arrive. It came after 9 trials, but I think that made me much stronger. They asked us to stay at São Paulo on trial for 15 days to see if we really could become São Paulo players. After only a week, we were officially signed by the club. It's a mixture of happiness, of mission accomplished, and the feeling of a dream come true.
Cafu was a guy with so much potential. He was incredibly strong physically and technically gifted. He still needed to be moulded, though. After he found his position on the pitch, he only went from strength to strength. That's where the importance of coach Tele Santana comes in. He took all Cafu's potential, his technical attributes and physical strength, to make him a fullback who could mark, get forward and dribble. The only thing he didn't have, because he'd never previously been a fullback, was crossing. Training hard made up for the lack of foundation he had in that area. That's when he started to stand out.
We're talking about a different era of football in the 90s. It's before the mass exodus. It's before the big process of globalization. And Cafu is a product of those times, before the mass exodus. So to get a place in a team like São Paulo, you had to be good.
I played from 1989, when we lost the Brazilian Cup final, until 1994. Those were fantastic times, the golden years. São Paulo won the Brazilian National Championship, the São Paulo State Championship, the Copa Libertadores twice, the Club World Cup twice. So many titles achieved in such a short period, and all the time playing fantastic football.
As Brazil prepared for the 1994 World Cup, Cafu's success with São Paulo would give him the chance to fulfill his childhood dream.
My dream was to become a footballer and one day play for Brazil. After playing for São Paulo, I felt this dream could become reality.
I had no doubts that he was at the level required to play for Brazil. In my opinion, he was more than good enough. From qualifying in 1993, the pressure was incredibly high and much greater than it is nowadays, because we'd gone 24 years without winning it. The players created a very strong bond. We were united, and obviously we realised that our style of play and playing well wouldn't be enough on its own. We had to win that World Cup.
Going into the tournament, Jorginho of Bayern Munich was seen as the first choice right-back by manager Carlos Alberto Parreira.
I grew up watching Jorginho play, and as a right-back, he was an inspiration for all of us.
Cafu was in great shape back then. He was the fittest player in the squad. We used to joke with him regarding the physical tests we did. He was waiting for his chance, but I wasn't letting up, because I knew he was after my place in the team. And so yes, he was a great guy, always very honest regarding fighting for that right-back berth. I think back then, Jorginho was a better defender than Cafu, but in attack it was the opposite. Cafu was much better and got forward a lot more. But he was always relaxed, as was Jorginho.
I remember us talking to each other and saying that we might be the only ones not to play.
Even if he was on the bench, he was very involved, talking to people, motivating people. He wasn't the kind of player to sit there and sulk or complain.
In the World Cup, the games are very tough, so we took it game by game. We got past the group stage. We beat the Netherlands, which I think was crucial in giving the team the belief that they could win the tournament.
A 1-0 win over Sweden in the semi-final meant Brazil would contest the World Cup final for the first time since 1970. Going into the match with Italy, it seemed Cafu was destined to watch the game from the bench. However, fate would intervene, and he would be thrown into his first of 3 consecutive World Cup final appearances.
Sometimes all it takes is an opportunity for people to show their real value. And this opportunity arrived.
Cafu came into the team and he played really well. He was incredible.
With neither team able to break the deadlock, the '94 World Cup final would be decided by a penalty shootout. Roberto Baggio's miss gave Brazil their 4th World Cup title.
I had just won the World Cup in 1994 with Brazil, and then I moved to Spain. I knew that I was going to have to adapt to a different country, a different culture, a different football style and tactical system, and that required a lot of dedication, determination and willpower.
I think Cafu has always been a work in progress. Everything he's done has been thought, how can I get the most out of the gifts and the talent that I have? So sure, when he goes to Europe, he's in contact with a new way of thinking about football. Even with Zaragoza, there were times that he's on the bench, sitting, watching, learning, always evolving.
I learned a lot at Zaragoza, and I tried adapting to the culture, to the tactics and the ways of that country. It was a fantastic feeling. My first season abroad and having the opportunity to win a major European trophy against a great Arsenal side. It was fantastic. I can't even explain the feeling. Unfortunately, I was only there for a short period of time due to my contract and other reasons, but then I had the chance of going abroad again, where I ended up staying for 11 years.
After a brief spell back in Brazil with Juventude and Palmeiras, Cafu once more crossed the Atlantic. This time his destination was Italy and AS Roma.
Cafu had demonstrated that he was a world-class player well before he went to Roma. He'd won a World Cup. He had already shown who he was.
After he moved to Roma, he became the leader there. I think he might be the best right-back that Roma ever had.
Both on and off the pitch, he has always been extremely professional, as well as extremely happy.
After finishing fourth in his first season in Italy, Cafu joined up with the Brazilian national team for the World Cup in France.
Going into the 1998 World Cup, they were trying to sell Brazil shirts all over the world. There was this real idea of a dream team. That team never really existed on the field. Maybe some of those players were a little bit overrated, but the one player who was clearly underrated was Cafu. Going into the 1998 World Cup, a lot of the media speculation looking at our team was, yeah, we got a great team, but I'm not sure about the right back. That game against Scotland, who was the man of the match? Who was the best player on the field? I think it might well have been Cafu. So suddenly, the player that you thought, well, maybe that was the weak point, he was the strong point. That was the moment when I realised that he wasn't just making up the numbers. We were dealing there with a world-class player. And he had a fantastic competition. He had a really good World Cup, 1998.
Well, that World Cup, we could have won it again. We were doing well in the competition. We had that semi-final against the Netherlands. We had a good game, and we beat them on penalties. We went into the final with a lot of belief. And then the Ronaldo thing happened.
On the day of the final, I wasn't feeling great. It was a convulsion, sort of. I seized up totally for about 15 to 20 seconds, or maybe 30 seconds.
Despite the uncertainty surrounding his fitness, Ronaldo was named in the Brazil team at the last possible moment.
We started the match in a really apathetic way, the whole team. France were totally different to us. They showed amazing desire.
For Brazil to play a final in this way was astounding. How could this have happened? But it did happen.
Following Brazil's 3-0 defeat, Cafu returned to Rome. In the following season, he had a new manager in the shape of Fabio Capello.
My main qualities were my speed, crossing and pass. The Pendolino was a train that used to go from Rome to Milan. It was very fast. Since I used to play as right back and had very good strength and endurance, they ended up calling me Pendolino because of my speed going forward.
He could get forward and back, and he was also very talented. He added value to our attacks. Roma was a very attacking team because we had Cafu on the right-hand side.
His speed, resilience and technique were the things that made a difference. Cafu had a lot of pace, and he always supported the attack, which used to cause untold problems for whoever he played against. Roma is one of the greatest teams in Italy in terms of expectations. Every year, there is a high hope to win the Italian league. Capello had arrived the year before. And he'd already been judging some players. He brought some important players for us, like Batistuta and Montella, who'd been doing well elsewhere in the league.
After so many years, we had the chance of success with Roma. It was a brilliant side, and one that the people of Rome deserved. I think it was one of the most celebrated league titles in the history of the club, and probably the history of Serie A. The celebrations lasted a whole week. The fans celebrated all week, all month, in fact all year. Even during the next pre-season, they were still celebrating. It continued during our training sessions. They commemorated that victory in the way that only Romans can.
With life in Rome flourishing for Cafu, things were not going quite so well with his beloved Seleção.
During the qualifiers for the 2002 World Cup, Brazil were in a state of absolute desperation because there are so many players to choose from, and this almost became a defect because after every defeat, change the coach, new players, change the coach, new players, there was no continuity.
It was a difficult time, a tense time. It was really tense because Brazil had never not qualified for a World Cup.
With Brazil on the brink of the unimaginable, they turned to Luis Felipe Scolari to help secure World Cup qualification. It created an uncertain future for Cafu.
Scolari's treatment of Cafu was quite strange because when he took over, Scolari did something that he'd never done as a club coach. He picked 3 centre-backs. Why had he done it? He said openly, Scolari said openly, I need the extra protection of a back 3, of a third centre-back, because Cafu can't defend. He said this openly. Now, some players would have got very angry about that declaration. Some players who played the previous 2 World Cup finals might have felt insulted, undermined, but not Cafu. Cafu, okay, if that's the way he feels, I will go back to my club and I will work harder at the defensive side of my game without sacrificing the attacking side of my game.
And the hard work paid off. With qualification secured, an injury to Roma teammate Emerson Ferreira on the eve of the tournament left Scolari in need of a new captain.
When Scolari suddenly needed a captain, who is the man there with the virtues of solidity, dependability? Who is the man there who is willing to put the interests of the team above his own interests? He chooses Cafu.
Cafu was always a leader and a very professional guy. It was his professionalism and leadership that stood out, as well as his footballing qualities. He had everything. He could defend, he could attack, he could do anything. He was a complete player.
He spread a positive attitude for the good of the group. His objective wasn't to try to stand out as an individual.
He was on another level, a great professional, a really happy guy, who was a really great player too, and a fantastic captain.
Cafu, he was the undisputed leader. Despite the fact that in that team, we had many leaders.
Beyond just being a great player and a great person, we knew that he wanted to help us.
2002 team won the World Cup, and there's a fabulous story there, which is the redemption of Ronaldo. It's a fabulous story. I don't think it stands as one of the great Brazil sides. I think that, in a way, maybe Cafu is a symbol of the victory.
Our team was very focused, concentrated and confident. I tend to say our team was very professional but relaxed at the same time. When we stepped onto the pitch, you could see a relaxed side, but as we say in Brazil, we had blood in our eyes. We knew what we had to do to get on the pitch and deal with Germany. And we ended up winning 2-0. We could have even scored more goals. It was a proper final, played by two great national teams. I knew Brazil could become world champions, but I didn't think of the celebrations or what I would do if we won the World Cup. It was all natural, and maybe that's why it was so beautiful. I was going to move to Japan after my contract with Roma finished. I had a pre-contract agreement signed with Yokohama, but then an offer from AC Milan came along. And I thought that if I'm receiving an offer from AC Milan at 33 years old, I've still got a lot more to give. And I ended up becoming a regular in that Milan side for 5 years, winning every title you can imagine.
He was very committed in training, very professional. He was, for sure, a very positive example. He had a speed that was twice that of the others.
AC Milan was a club that was accustomed to winning titles, and every year would win at least one trophy. We won the UEFA Super Cup, the Italian League, the Italian Cup. And then we reached the Champions League final.
2005 gave Cafu the chance to join an exclusive group of players who have won both the Libertadores Cup and the Champions League, the most celebrated club competitions in South America and Europe.
We thought the game was already over because we were 3-0 up. It was very difficult to turn that game around, but Liverpool did that. So that match serves as a lesson to everyone. Don't think you've already won because you're 1 or 2-0 up, or because your opponent's not giving you a tough game. All it takes is one pass or one move for them to get confidence and courage and come at you.
That result was tough for everyone, but it's true that we played very well, and maybe we didn't deserve to lose.
But 2 years later, Cafu and AC Milan were given the chance of redemption when they met Liverpool once again in the Champions League final.
I don't ever feel I need to get revenge. That doesn't exist for me. I didn't have that feeling of I'm going to beat you because you beat me in 2005. It was a feeling of respect they were capable of, and because we took them seriously, we ended up winning that game.
We were happy to play that final against Liverpool because we all thought it was a sign from destiny.
After 11 years at the sharp end of Serie A, Cafu decided the time had come to hang up his boots.
I'd made the decision to retire 2 years before I actually stopped.
I think he'd thought a lot about it, because I was talking to him, and in the end, he realised that the time had come.
I started to prepare my life in Brazil. I told my family and let them know that within 2 years, we're going back home. So to start making arrangements.
Cafu finished as one of the most decorated players in the history of football. His roll call of Italian and Brazilian titles, as well as Champions League, Libertadores and Intercontinental Cups, was surpassed only by his achievements with Brazil, playing 3 consecutive World Cup finals, winning 2 and retiring as the most capped player in the history of the Seleção.
The legacy of Cafu for world football is clear. If you work and work again, you can go much further than perhaps you even believed was possible.
Anyone who knows Cafu's story is aware of how many trials he took part in and how many times he was rejected. But he never gave up. He became captain and then he won the World Cup. So I think his story is a beautiful one, and this is why he's admired by everyone.
Cafu was a great captain. He'll be our everlasting captain. A top guy who'd really motivate you. And an honourable person. An honest guy. A joker. But someone who was serious when required.
I have no idea if another player will get as many caps as him. It'll be very tough for this to be achieved. He never gives in. He just never gives in and always keeps believing. And so I think Cafu really deserves the reputation he has. And I helped him achieve that.
I played in 3 World Cup finals in a row. I played in 4 World Cups. I represented Brazil 148 times. I was a kid who'd been rejected in 9 trials and ended up becoming the most capped player in Brazil's history. I was the national team captain. So I feel a very happy guy and extremely proud of everything I've done for my country.